Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week, 31st of August 2017. Joining me as always, Dan Miller, Tom McGill, my name's Dave Scotland, and tonight we're going to jump into a classic sci-fi. Can we call it sci-fi?
I suppose it's science
It's
in there and it's fiction.
It's a sciencey fiction thing.
I guess.
And it is definitely a classic. It is the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea from 1961. Gentlemen, how did we find this film? Did we discover it anew, or is this a second viewing?
This is the first viewing.
Yeah?
I had not even realized that this film had been such a success. It's one of those, you've seen the posters, if you've heard the title. It's one of those Voyage to the something, films. One of my favorite movies ever is Voyage to the Center of the Earth. Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Not the movie necessarily, but the concept, the book, the movie. I like all incarnations of the movie.
There's so many incarnations, it's hard to know which one's your favourite.
No, because I like the concept. I love this idea of just going down there.
And finding another world.
And having glowing mushrooms that'll show you the way. So I had not known that this film was such a big thing. I knew that there was a TV series, but I hadn't realized that they were connected because I never saw the TV series.
Yeah.
Did you see it? Did you?
I have no memory of the TV series, and this is not the film I thought it was when I picked it. I got it confused with Fantastic Voyage.
Which is into the
body.
body.
Which is shrinking down a ship and having it injected into a body.
Which we should definitely do a show.
It would definitely, It's a great film because it's got a great villain in it. That particular.
The same one we had last time.
Yeah, he's
Blofeld.
The guy in THX.
That's right.
Whatever his name was.
Someone that gets his comeuppance.
Yeah.
Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance. There you go.
Well, who knows?
So I was quite surprised when I started watching it, thinking, well, hang on, that's a submarine.
Voyage to the bottom of the sea. Yes.
Yeah. And so the series,
not Voyage to the bottom, which is
Voyage to the arse. The series went into production because they had built the sub. The producer built the sub. He said, "Well, we might as well get more value out of it," and the movie itself did quite well, so they were able to roll off the back of it. What I wasn't aware of too is that the director/producer of this film was the producer of Lost in Space.
Yeah, many TV shows.
Yeah, 86 episodes of Lost in Space he was the producer of.
Wow. There were 4 episodes I saw on IMDb of the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea TV show.
Different cast.
For seasons, you
Different
mean?
cast,
Sorry,
same sub.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into all of the stuff that they made. You got to imagine that that's what they had in mind.
Yeah.
From the outset. That, we'll do a movie and then we'll see if we can get a spin-off show afterwards.
Lots of dressed up swimming pool diving scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With sort of, I got a feeling they used a lot of skinny fish tanks in between the diving back there. So they'd have a dive, like cameras were dry.
Yeah.
And the divers were behind a glass window in a tank.
Yep.
And then in between there and the camera was a thin tank with fish that would swim past.
I think,
now and then.
Yeah, and they had a lot of underwater sets. Obviously, they'd built an underwater thing with kelp and all sorts of stuff. Went to a lot of trouble.
Giant kraken.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what about you, Dan? You'd seen it before?
No, never seen it before, and it wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even know that it was a thing. So, and this type of thing's normally on my radar, so I was a bit surprised. It was like, oh, never seen this before. That's pretty cool.
So the tagline on our friends over at IMDb, when the Earth is threatened by a burning Van Allen radiation belt, U.S. Navy Admiral Hiram Harriman Nelson plans to shoot a nuclear missile at the belt using his experimental atomic submarine, the Seaview.
That's a cromulent way of dealing with these things. Yeah.
It's sort of... It took all the topical things from the day.
Well, look at the poster.
Rolled it into a thing.
Voyage to Amazing Atomic Adventure on land, in outer space, and under the sea. They're covering everything.
Well, not everything out of the movie, because there's giant squids and there's
it's under the sea thing. Yeah,
there's minefields for some reason in the middle of the Pacific. So there's
the only thing they're missing there is a journey beyond time.
Yes,
in land
in the 24th century.
Yes.
Before time. Okay, so we might as well jump in, and as normal, Dan, you're our master of ceremonies for all things narrative, and we'll progress our way through the film. There's massive spoiler alerts ahead. We will be revealing the film on a sort of story beat by story beat process, and stopping off to discuss various interesting facts, or at least the stuff that we found interesting along the way. So where do we start, sir?
Well, start at the beginning, but and interestingly, at the beginning of this film, there's a big introduction thing, which I don't know, kind of. Well,
I've got a poster just for what you're alluding to.
Okay.
So it's Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Hear Frankie Avalon sing Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Actually, we probably have to rewind back one step, because it starts off with Frankie Avalon
building out a big tune.
Yes, this crooner tune. and I paid some attention to it. It's like, Voyage to the bottom of the sea.
And you didn't know what movie. And you did not know what sort of movie you were going to get.
And the lyrics are like, we'll find true love at the bottom of the sea. No, there's friggin' octopuses down there. There's not true love down at the bottom of the sea.
And it just reeked of a marketing ploy, didn't it? Like they shoved him in there into the film because he was a hit with the kids.
Yeah. Some famous,
he did all those beach movies, and it was him and Gidget. Remember her? Have you heard of Gidget? Frank. He was Gidget's other half in all the surfing movies.
Yeah, surfing movies. That's right.
That might have even been Mouseketeers.
Probably, yes. That's
at a very young age.
Starting to ring bizarre bells that I know for some reason.
Yeah. So the movie poster's got people looking alarmed and pointing, and then there's people fighting squid and then there's the fire, flames in the sky, and then there's a little inset picture. Here, Frankie Avalon sing Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. So yes, I didn't know what the hell I was getting into when that music started.
Yes, that was.
I did have a vision that it was going to be singing more throughout the thing. I have got a massive pet hate about musicals, or I don't mind when there's a band, there's a reason for the singing. You know what I mean? But when song starts up and there's no band,
when we're in the world where song in the song dimension,
like Grease, like Saturday Night Fever, I like, right? Grease, I don't like. And that's the difference, is that there is a reason for that music, and then these guys all of a sudden have a backing band and they're in a grandstand. And, So I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah, all right. So you get through that start with Frankie singing about something that doesn't happen in the movie, except it's got the sea and the word bottom in it, I suppose. Anyway, then we go on and we start meeting all of the characters.
Before we see meeting the characters, we meet the sub. The first thing we see is a tremendous crash surfacing.
A breach that will kill everybody inside.
It would kill everybody who's in there, all bones shattered. And the aquarium that we later get exposed to with the shark inside, which is this, filled to this brim.
Exactly. So you can imagine all the water in that aquarium leaning up against the wall.
Yeah, I know.
I've watched a bunch of docos on submarines, including submarine training things, and they say, we're going to do a crash surface, which is obviously a crash dive. And it's nowhere near as spectacular. It just sort of rises at a 15.5 degree angle out of the thing. So yes, no, you're right. It does launch itself out of the...
almost entirely jumps out of the water.
Yeah, and then splashes down.
Very Thunderbird-esque too, in its miniature shooting type. There's icebergs in the background, and we're familiar with this. We spend a lot of time around it. The forces, wind, fire, water, they have their own scale. And so, for every square meter of every cubic meter of water has a ton of weight. Is that roughly right?
When
so it's about a kilo to a litre.
Yes.
Yeah.
when an
Ish.
A kilo? Yeah. Kilo is a square cubic meter. So
Yeah, so it's about a ton.
it'd be a ton.
Right?
Suppose.
Now, a ton of water has weight, and so when waves move in the ocean, there's so much mass that it can't move fast. Right?
Yes.
The little bits on the surface might, as the wind blows, in spray and whatever, but that big mass can't. So as soon as it's in a swimming pool, we're in trouble. And even if you slow it down, it doesn't fix the problem. So that's what we're introduced to almost in the first shot there.
I was going to say an iceberg in the real world, when a shard of iceberg comes off, it's a terrific crash with a colossal water explosion.
And then it goes back to the surface. It doesn't sink.
They don't sink to the bottom of this. No.
And when it happens in this movie, the iceberg falls off and it's kind of like a plonk.
Yeah. And there's no spray at all. It's just
Well, we
sort
said
of
1961, so we've got to give them that.
Absolutely.
But no, I enjoyed all of those special.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of liked it. I liked it for what it
Absolutely.
was. You know, for what it
And
was.
Thunderbirds is I'm a big fan of the old school Thunderbird stuff.
Okay, so the movie starts off and we go and investigate. We go and meet everybody, which is kind of a cool thing to do in a movie. I think we've probably reviewed movies before. We haven't done that.
But not
step.
having known anything about the film, you meet all the three people there. There's the shrink lady, the visitors. So you think, okay, we're going to be exposed to all the crew via those visitors. We're going to see the film. That's what I sort of expect. That those are the three characters that we will be following along. There's the shrink lady. Then there is the investor guy.
The senator.
Senator, that's right.
The shrink lady's also a senator.
Yeah.
Was she? I didn't know
Was she?
that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought she was just doing a study on confined spaces and.
No, I'm pretty sure she's a senator, but she also is a shrink.
Because the other guy was a senator.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's what my
There's the
impression
senator,
was.
and I'm immediately thinking, okay, so who we got? We got the love interest, and we've got the bad guy, and I picked the senator as the bad guy,
Yeah.
and then he was gone. He was out of the film.
Yeah.
15 minutes later.
Yeah, they
set
just
him up
left
as
him behind.
They did set him up as
They
the
left
bad
him
guy.
behind at the lift. Like he just couldn't fit in the lift or
Yeah.
something, or didn't get back to the
Yeah,
lift. It's like,
that's
we're
right.
going to go without him.
Yeah.
I thought they used a good narrative device right at the very start, where we see the bridge of the sub. The main actor, Walter Pidgeon, who is the admiral that devised the whole sub, is watching television. He's watching a television broadcast, and the television broadcast is describing who he is, what his expertise is, that he created it, and even describes the people we're about to go and meet. And he says that such and such senator is, as we speak, such and such senator is on their way to for sea trials and blah, blah, blah. So it sets up just this one broadcast that's happening on the underwater television.
It's good expository dialogue disguised nicely. You know, so he didn't have to have, one of the other guys come up and say, "So, who are you, Admiral?" And he'd say, "Well, I'm a scientist."
Exactly. We'll just accept that.
So, who are some of the characters? We've got the shrink lady. We've got the pencil pushing senator,
Dr. Susan Hiller.
She's the shrink lady.
She's the shrink lady.
Admiral Harriman Nelson, played by Walter Pidgeon. He's
Okay,
our
let's
main
stop.
guy.
Stop there
Admiral
for a second.
Nelson.
Harriman.
Harriman?
I can barely say Harriman.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
Couldn't he be Jack Nelson?
Sure.
Okay, what's real Admiral Nelson's name?
and
Horatio.
Horatio. Isn't that a weird name? Horatio. So I thought they're just trying to do something with Admiral H. Nelson. And they just, we can't call him Horatio. Let's call him Harriman. Harriman sounds awesome.
No one will ever know, but
That's-
they'll know.
That's so
That's just
crazy
my
that it's probably
spurious-
exactly what happened. We have Lieutenant Kathy Connors, who we haven't met yet. We get introduced to her in a little while as they're doing the tour.
I like Kathy Connors. It's got that nice alliteration. It's like Lois Lane.
Yes.
It's like
Kathy Connors.
yes, I can cope.
It's a Stan
Can cope with
Lee-ism.
Kathy Connors.
Like all of the Marvel characters have the matching name. Jonah Jameson. And
Yeah.
We have Commodore Lucius Emery,
Yeah.
played by Peter Law,
Yeah.
who plays the best Igor of all time.
He's always great to watch.
Yes, I'm coming, Master. Captain Lee Crane, played by Robert Sterling, who is he always throughout the whole movie looks like someone farted in the room and he's trying to smell what it smells like. He's searching his mind's eye all the time. He's always confused. He's sort of angry, but he's confused at the same time.
I think I was confused watching this film. I think he was too.
We've got Miguel Alvarez.
Not yet.
But we haven't met him yet.
No.
That's right. And at the time, he was married to Barbara Eden,
Yeah.
who was Kathy Connors.
Oh, I suppose we have to
outside of the film.
do a little diversion on Kathy Connors / Barbara Eden,
Who is I Dream of Jeannie, of course.
Yes,
And this is pre-I Dream of Jeannie, I believe.
1960, I don't know. Yeah.
61, maybe? Got a feeling?
I don't know, but if I had to guess,
It's
probably.
the breach, yeah. Well, if
Yeah.
we're doing those digressions, then we need to talk about Michael and Sarah, her husband, as well, who is here pre-Star Trek.
Yes, very famous in Star
Very
Trek.
famous in Star Trek as
Famous Klingon.
Captain,
was he?
Captain Kang.
Ah, there you go.
He's powerful actor.
Came in.
Good
He's
actor.
in Star Trek. He's also
Even
in
in
Deep
this,
Space
very
Nine. Reprised the
demanding
role.
sort of character.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very weird injection into the film, though. And then we've got a bunch of also rants. And Frankie Avalon, of course, that we haven't met yet in the narrative. But,
Yeah, who hangs around and
who's
walks on and off set every now and again.
Lieutenant
and says things.
Danny Romano. He likes
Yeah.
to repeat a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or green.
Yes.
Some other guy says dive. Dive! All
Yes,
right.
yeah. You
And
won't
who-
have to do any acting. Just whatever he says, just repeat it.
So the Admiral goes to meet the plane that's landed, the seaplane that's landed with the senator or potentially two senators and the other
the shrink lady and the pencil pushing
and the other admiral.
dude.
There's
There's a spare admiral.
Spare admiral.
All right, so my impression of all this is, what the fuck who are all these people? Fucking half a captain and an Admiral Harriman and a Commodore Lucius and a.
Well, there's a crew. yes, of course.
After about 15, I was like starting to lose track of who all these people were. Half of them in brown uniforms.
They do introduce them right at the start in a big bunch.
Yeah.
But the film is how long? Over 2 hours, isn't it? It's pretty long.
145.
yeah.
145
Yeah.
only. Felt like over 2 hours.
It felt like 2 hours.
So, what did you think of Admiral Harriman Nelson? Because he's an admiral, you know, he invents the sub, but he also happens to be a physics genius of some description.
Probably plays the violin too.
Yeah, probably plays it. Yes, he's.
I struggle to believe either because either was watered down by the other. If you want me to believe you're a scientist, you're gonna you need to stick that way, right?
Yeah.
But instead, there's the military side, and he gives all the orders, and it's, I don't know. It was a weird mix. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, and
Did we see it in Attack of the Crab People? Wasn't the guy that was in charge also a high up military guy that was also running around in this khaki with the black tie and the big glasses?
but I think they managed to keep their character to be one thing.
Was he a
He's
scientist or just a military guy? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's definitely right. He's splitting, you know. He's scientist and admiral, and it's like, oh man, if he's a scientist, he's got to have a white coat on, and he's got to be walking around with a clipboard. And then I'd be like, oh, he's a genius scientist, obviously.
Yeah.
So
And he can't give commands, and he can't have the head-to-head with the captain.
yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying we got to have this bit of a restructure. Anyway, there's also Lucius, Commodore Lucius,
Yes.
who's also another super scientist.
Yes.
A physicist,
Physicist that
likes fish.
walks sharks.
Yes.
Why was he walking the shark again?
The shark was
He drugged it.
They drugged it, and because the sharks need to move to breathe, he had to push the shark through the
right.
through
It
the
was
aquarium.
Shark pushing.
Move,
It was a
move
very
water past his gills.
foam latex looking shark, wasn't it?
it was just a blood. Did you ever show the whole thing, or was it just the back with
No,
a fin on it?
no.
I
we
got
was
the
no-
impression
We
that
didn't
he
show
was
it.
making its tail wiggle when he was holding it.
Oh no, that's good acting. That's Peter Lorre. That's why they needed him.
All right. The next thing that happens in the movie is after they've wandered around and they're talking to everybody.
So they did the tour.
They did the tour.
Yeah.
They show the
interviewed-
biggest interior submarine since the bloody
Yeah.
Yes, it's the space,
bloody
spacious
Captain Nemo's
Yeah.
Yes.
thing.
With bay windows at the front.
yeah, that's right.
Which
2
I-
stories high.
That's
Windows
yeah,
at the
yeah,
front.
yeah.
2 stories high windows that you could play soccer in that bloody submarine. There's so much. No boat has as much area than this one.
All right, and then suddenly the inciting incident, I suppose, is it starts raining icebergs.
Yes.
Onto them. Yes.
Yes. And because ice does that, apparently.
Underwater, it rains down and doesn't float.
It rains down, it doesn't float.
Strangely, the icebergs do float normally, except when they crack into
Except when the
smaller
Van Allen
icebergs,
belts come down.
then
When
they
space
fall.
comes crushing down on you, the icebergs have to give.
So emergency blow all hatches, surface,
Yes.
and what do they find?
They find that the sky is red, blood red.
And Tom, talk to me about the Van Allen belt.
Who invented the Van Allen belt?
Dick Van Dyke.
Apparently, the Van Allen belt is when they finally radio New York to find out what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
They're informed that the Van Allen belt has caught on fire
That's right.
Yes.
due to some kind of or
This is the
coincidental media
The
shower.
gasoline Van Allen belt. We're
Well, I'm
talking
glad
about
it
here.
didn't caught on fire because of nuclear tests. Because most of these films from that era, whatever happens to the planet.
Don't talk too soon because we've got a solution here.
Yeah, I know. But at least nuclear tests doesn't cause it. Here they are. But yeah, no, they're radiation. So cosmic rays, because they're ionized, they will follow the path of the Earth's magnetic field, and they will there's a certain sweet spot where they will just go around in circles around the planet, and they're just accumulated over millions of years, and there's just high level of radiation there.
And where is it in relation, say, between us and the moon? About halfway, or
Not quite.
I
I
think
don't
it's
think
very
it's that
close,
high. It's
actually.
fairly close.
But it's not beyond the moon, is it? It's,
No.
no.
The astronauts going to the moon had to go through it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conjecture about, a lot of conspiracy theorists put that forward as that every astronaut that went to the moon had to go spend time in the Van Allen belt. And some of the astronauts have actually said that during that time they could literally see shooting stars when their eyes were
Yes.
closed.
You can see that on astronauts on the ISS. You just close your eyes and you can see cosmic
really?
particles. Rarely, but it happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen electron images of astronauts' helmets, and you can see that on the inner metal there's these spikes.
Wow.
Tiny little spikes, electronic microscopic little long spikes, and those are just micrometeors
Wow.
that have hit the helmet and sort of stopped then, but deformed the metal.
No wonder Buzz Aldrin's always smacking people out at events and stuff like that. So yes, and the Van Allen belt as something that can catch on fire in an oxygenless
Not so much.
environment, probably
Not
not,
so-
something
no.
that. Yeah. So the very premise of the sky on fire, rather than stick with something inside the atmosphere, they went for something thousands of kilometers out into space.
They were just discovered. This is 1961.
Yes,
the
only
Van
a few
Allen
years
belts
ago.
were very,
Yeah.
very new at the
Yeah.
time. They were
Yeah.
a hot topic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the films we've looked at, they do that. They sort of jump on the latest tech.
And we
the
do that
latest-
as well today.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the point of science fiction.
Yeah.
Is for us to explore as a society. Well, what are we going to do with the Van Allen belt? We just found it. You know, what if it caught on fire? Let's make a movie.
Very good. So they've surfaced. They've realised the sky's on fire, and they've got word from New York that the whole world is in fact,
Everything, yeah. Radios don't work anymore. Surprised that electricity works still.
except for the radio that they called New York to find out the radios didn't work.
Was that later on when they have the undersea cable?
Later on, the
they
radios.
they called New York first to find out what had happened. And
The
they-
radios were in the process of not working.
That's right.
It's a slow.
That's right.
So that's how the Van Allen belt works.
And they got word to proceed back to New York at all.
because
at
all
top
of the best
speed.
brains in the world were going to be there.
Yep.
And it turns out that Harrison Horatio Nelson is one of the two best brains that there is.
on the planet, and he must be there.
Yes.
So they plot a course.
No, they don't do that yet because whilst they're down there in the conning tower talking to Washington, old Captain Lee Harvey Oswald, or whatever his name was, is up there with his binocs.
That's right.
Taking
Just when
a
they're about to
last
dive,
look.
he thought he'd have a last-minute look.
Yes. And what does he see? He sees a small mannequin on a
Yeah,
plastic
A
iceberg.
piece of foam.
A piece of foam floating out there in the ocean. It's crazy.
Send out the rescue crew.
And just to show what a hard guy the captain is, everybody who goes up to the surface sweats because of the enormous heat.
That's right.
Everybody comes back drenched, except the captain. His shirt is dry.
He's a cool
He
dude.
keeps it cool.
So they rescue, and who do they rescue?
It's, what's his
Captain
name?
Gang.
Miguel.
Miguel.
Miguel Alvarez.
Alvarez.
Who I think is consistently just called Alvarez throughout the whole thing because he's probably part of an ethnic minority on the ship. They just called him his last name.
And I get suspicious immediately when he comes on board because I'm still trying to figure out where the bad guy is.
That's
this is something for 2 hours and 45 minutes, 1 hour 45 minutes.
Yep.
I'm still not able to determine.
Yep.
At the end of the movie, credits roll. I go, who was the bad guy?
Who was the saboteur?
I was confused the entire film. I was thinking, okay, who am I rooting for, and who am I? So of course, the as I said already, the congressman was my first guess, and then here comes an ethnic person. So 1961. He's possibly the bad guy, and yeah, he does some stupid thing at the end. But even though I'm on board with him.
Yeah,
I'm on board. You have to, when we get to that point, you got to explain the bloody thing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes on board and he also brings another person on board who is a small dog.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so why? Don't know. The dog didn't save the day or eat biscuits
and it never shows.
It never shows up again.
There's one other scene where he's patting it on a bed there at one point, and then we never see it again.
Yeah, I don't know. So okay, very weird. Very weird. Okay, so we have to now get to New York City to the UN very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And while we're blasting our way to New York, the captain, the admiral, and his offsider
and
scientist
his Commodore
buddy are trying to solve the problem of the Van Allen belt being on fire.
Yes,
using maths and physics.
Not just using maths and physics. They have equipment. What do they use?
I can't remember equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do they use a computer?
Do they? Not.
No, they don't use a computer.
Have an abacus.
Oh, he's got a slide rule.
He's got a friggin' slide rule.
Of course he does.
And he works that shit out on that slide rule.
And he checked. I remember at one point he actually pulled the slide rule out. It confirmed his findings and he was elated.
Have you ever used a slide rule?
not for that reason. And what was his did he reveal what the solution was?
No. So the whole conversation is, I've just checked the calculations and they turned out to be correct. And the other guy says, are you sure they're correct? Well, I'm sliding this rule and yes, it's correct. It's a genius move.
Now come over here and you check the calculations.
Yeah, that's right. You come over. Yes, it's totally correct. Okay, thanks.
And meanwhile, while all this is happening, right, there's this strange scene where the captain hears bugling, trumpeting coming from some door down the hallway.
Hall, yeah.
He opens up the doorway, and what do we find?
We find that there is some fraternising going on.
there's our wonder boy, Frankie Avalon, blasting out some tunes on a trumpet.
Yes.
He's well known for trumpeting, apparently, and
Kathy Connors twisting the night away,
dancing to the whooping cheers of 30 sailors.
We'll all just sit around watching and cheering. Shake it.
And once again, I've gone back to a point where now what's this movie? Right at the start, we got Frankie singing, then we got a bunch of science, and we're heading down the road of science fiction,
musically. And
then that happened again. And I got, oh no, we're back. Where are we going here?
And where we do go is that the captain comes in and he shouts and raves, what is going on now? And then he hauls out Kathy Connors.
The Admiral's in there having a go as well.
And the Admiral and everybody's pissed out and pissed off, and he hauls out Kathy Connors and he says, what are you doing? And she says, I was just dancing. And then they start kissing.
In the hallway. And we find out that that Kathy Connors is betrothed. And they're due to wed.
Was that in any way part of the essential part of the story that they're a couple?
No, unless you count her concerned looks when he's getting squeezed by an octopus.
They didn't want to make Frankie Avalon into a liar and not find any true love at the bottom of the sea.
It put her in later on when there's a captain versus admiral scenario going on. She's this sort of pawn that. She
goes back and forth, trying to balance things out and stuff. Yeah. All right. So they arrive at the UN.
Yes.
Okay, so pulls into the UN. The sky's all red. The UN is all sitting around.
They literally pull in at the UN.
Yeah, they do. They pull up
at
the UN. They
literally park at the UN.
Yeah, they had a park already organised.
Something very Batman about that.
Yeah. All right, so they get
There was
out.
a Batman sound in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, when the missiles
rocket,
launched at the end, it's the turbines to speed. When the Batmobile takes off, it's the same
true,
sound.
True. Yeah, they must have only had like 15 sound effects back in those days or something or other.
So we see the quorum of representatives from many countries arguing and yelling and
being UN-y.
And then the Admiral.
And there's like this amphitheater of people surrounding two empty chairs.
That's right.
Right.
Like there's supposed to be something over here, but no one ever talks to the thing that's over here. But yes, the Admiral turns up with his rolled up plans.
Yes. And so he takes his seat, and there's the other great brain of the world, which is Zuko, somebody or other, Zuko.
Zuko, yes, who's famous for playing Moriarty in some of the Sherlock Holmes films.
Right.
I'll give you his name.
Henry Daniell.
Yes, Henry Daniell.
So he's not quite. Well, it's really weird because our hero gets front and center in the very center of the amphitheater, whereas Zuko sits off on the side, the other great brain of the world for some reason.
And Zuko has a theory of his own.
They have a plan. Yeah.
So there's competing plans. We hear Zuko's first. I think he announces it before the Admiral turns up. So he's talking to the quorum, and his plan is. My calculations are that this thing is growing in heat gradually for a certain amount of time, and then it will reach 137 degrees
or something,
and then it cannot burn anymore, and therefore the whole effect will stop and it will go away.
Yes.
So his plan was to do nothing.
And it'll just go away by itself.
Yes. And he's quite passionate about his plan.
And so what's Horatio Nelson's plan?
Launch a nuke.
Well, the only sensible thing to do in the 1961 is
Let me think about this.
launch a nuke at it.
Well,
We just got those blasted things. We've got to use them.
Yeah. But the nuke is not really the plan. The plan is exactly the moment that it has to be launched.
That's right, from a particular place on the planet Earth.
Can only be launched off the island of Guam in the Pacific.
5:37.
At 1400 or 1600 hours or something on the 16th of it had to be launched on the 29th of the month. But Zuko's plan we didn't know that it was going to be confirmed to be true until the 30th of the month.
That's right. So we've got problems.
So the Admiral took it upon himself to move forward in his direction anyway.
So the Admiral says, what does he say? He says, well, what actually I think happens in order is Zuko stands up and says, all right, everybody in the UN, let's take a vote. Who thinks my plan is best? And so people go, no, who thinks his plan is best? And people go, and who thinks my plan is best? And everybody goes, huzzah! And then Nelson says, fuck you guys. I only take my orders from the President of the United States. I'm an American. This UN's in New York City. Screw you guys. I'm going over to my submarine and I'm going to bloody nuke this thing.
It was so American. Wasn't it? Because he was rolling his plans up. As soon as they took the vote, he wasn't arguing anything. It was just roll the plans up. Just under this, come on, we're out of here.
So they go and get in the lift and they close it and everybody's banging on the lift and banging on the lift.
They leave the senator behind.
They leave, that pencil pusher behind. Then they go down and they jump in the sub, and then the cops come out, and the cops are running. And
cops are banging on the sub door.
Let us in! Let us in!
And then the Admiral tells the captain to take us under.
Yes,
leaving the cops to swim in the Hudson.
Yes, and the captain, he says, yes, you'll probably drown the cops. And Nelson says, they know how to swim. Don't worry about it.
They became cops. They know what they got themselves into.
He's quite flippant, isn't he? The Admiral, when it comes to. He's a big picture guy,
and you can see where my confusion throughout the film comes from because there is this conflict now. We have these two theories, the two scientists, and this guy just hot-headed storms off and wants to nuke things, and you go, is he wrong or is he right?
Yeah.
And I mean that's quite a realistic thing to you don't know. That's great, but it sort of lacked the bad guy, lacked really knowing who are we, and throughout the entire film it doesn't It never resolved itself.
And people kept morphing into the bad guy. At one point, the psychiatrist chick, she to me became the bad guy.
Well,
she was the one spreading all the bad vibes about the Admiral, and saying no, he's losing his mind. It's a copybook process. So she would become. And then
she did get comeuppance. She got eaten by a ruddy shark. So she obviously was a bad guy because otherwise she wouldn't have been eaten.
Fine, yeah, that was when she went and tampered with the bloody...
Yeah. Because the good guy, he had his hand in the water and his hand wasn't eaten for dessert. So he was a good guy.
Yeah.
The sharks can tell those things.
Sharks can tell that. They can instinctively know who's good at that.
James
All right,
Bond.
so Nelson's going to head off to the Marianas and he's going to do his thing, and meanwhile the Alvarez and the lady shrink psychiatrist senators stuck on the sub, and they kind of didn't want to be there, but they're stuck on the sub.
Yep.
And so
why even?
Why?
Alvarez could have gone off in New York.
I know,
Why was he even
just,
there?
I know. So same with the senator chick. But anyway,
the only thing I took from that was that Alvarez was already starting to formulate a...
I thought she said why she was there. I thought she said she was doing an evaluation of the crew and she was going to be there on the journey.
was assigned
but why the civilian?
Was she?
Why this guy was there?
I think he deep down he knew he was going to try to
Sabotage.
do the will of God.
Sabotage. All right. So they're off in the ocean, sailing the ocean blue, but ignoring the UN, Nelson takes his orders from the POTUS. So he wants to get on the blower to the POTUS, but the radio's out because of the Van Allen belt's on fire. So he comes up with a cunning plan that they're going to tap into the Atlantic Sea cable
Off Brazil.
off the north coast of Brazil or something or
Because
other.
they had to go around the Horn because the... it is the Horn? South America's the Horn, or is it...
Good Hope or whatever?
So around the bottom.
Yeah,
They had to go around the bottom of South America because the Suez Canal was out of action from something.
Right.
Oh,
Did they say why?
Maybe there was a Van Allen belt inside.
There's a mini Van Allen belt.
So they went the long way around, and on the way, the Admiral decides that we're going to tap in to the telephone cable that goes from
Rio to
London.
Somewhere, yeah.
Okay, so that's going to involve a bunch of people getting into scuba suits with their... They're going to get equipped with all of their underwater...
Because
guns
every scuba
and-
diver needs to take a harpoon.
Yeah,
yes,
yes.
we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all go out with a harpoon. You think, bloody hell, this is not James Bond. But of course it is. And they need them.
And they never seem to string the rubber either on those. They've always got this loose, dangly, wobbly rubber at the front. It's supposed to be strung back here to the trigger. But yes, they conveniently, for the audience's benefit, wore different coloured wetsuits.
I thought that was good. They had the yellow one, the red one, and
then the also red black one. So we knew one of these guys is going to cop it.
And the civilian is there again. Alvarez goes there and says, I have to be there because I can scuba dive.
Yeah.
You need me.
Yes.
Because a whole bunch of submarine
Because a whole
people...
submarine full of people, they couldn't find scuba divers.
Yeah, underwater.
Crazy. That was our first introduction to the volunteer system that they had. It was very prevalent on the boat.
All right, so they've got their little mine detectors, and they beep, 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 and they sweep away 4 pebbles, and it's like, oh, we found the cable.
Here it is here.
Okay, here it is here.
It's a beautiful coral reef.
Yeah.
Beautiful coral reef.
5,000 kilometers wide. Anyway, beep, beep, beep. Oh, here it is. All right, so they find it. And then immediately a shark attacks them.
Oh, it's a sawfish. Yeah. Sawfish just swims by. He just meanders.
It was a swordfish.
Yeah, true. It didn't really... Yes, it didn't really attack them.
I knew it
did
had a sword. Was it a swordfish?
Sawfish. It had this
big long nosy thing.
it's a
And is that a type of shark?
it's a kind of ray actually.
Yeah, that's...
But they're
Do they have teeth normally?
cartilaginous fish. They've
They've got teeth on their nose.
they've got teeth. Yeah, absolutely.
Was it a fake one? Look, it was...
I hope it was a fake
No,
one.
it was a fake one. Yeah, they put a harpoon through it. No, that was a fake one.
Was it?
But yes, so Captain sees fish.
Gotta kill it. It moved.
You see a lot of films in your life, and you never see a sawfish attack a person.
Yeah.
No.
as a method of death.
No, they don't.
I don't know. I don't know how it would do it, but
And it wasn't. It was just swimming.
yes,
Yeah.
it was just like
That's what I got.
I'm
as well.
going home now. After a day of work.
There's a guy, and he's sort of
my
funny.
children.
The guy's got his head down, and he just looks up, and he goes,
Good shot. Yeah.
Killing
First chance.
Yes,
Got it.
killing nature.
and then we see something lurking in the weeds in the background.
Which is ginormous Archaeototus, a giant squid
Squiddly diddly.
in 15 meters depth.
Yeah, with the creeping
Tentacles.
tentacle moving across towards our captain,
Yes.
our main captain.
Yep.
Maybe
So-
that was also just a prop that they had from some other lagoon movie, and they
So
just
can I
wanted to
describe
reuse
what
it.
happens next?
Yes.
Please.
The captain grabs the tentacle and wraps it around himself 5 times until he ends up at the front of the octopus.
Yeah, in a wrapping spinning motion, managed to stitch himself right up.
He obviously hadn't done his octopus battle training at submarine school.
He managed to unload a bolt from his spear gun, and then the other guys turned up and they unloaded bolts from their spear guns.
And it was about this time that I was thinking to myself, all right, there's a bunch of actors underwater shooting spear guns in a wrestling match at point blank range.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, do they have fake spear guns or are these actual? Don't worry, I'll shoot it over here and I won't hit you. You shoot it over there and don't hit me. All right, everybody go crazy. Let's go.
Not to mention there's probably some diver inside the squid as well.
He's like, oh shit, what the fuck?
So the big guy ends up saving the day, doesn't he? Alvarez.
Alvarez,
Yes.
yeah.
Alvarez.
Saves him. They cut. I thought it was a good practical effect when they cut the tentacle and all of the red dye leaked out into the water.
Yeah.
We could clearly see what was going on in the frenzy. But the captain was saved and brought back to the ship, and the telephone line was tapped.
I think everybody didn't die.
Yeah. I was quite shocked to
was
see that the crewman number 4.
Yeah, we could have eaten him at least.
Yeah, I thought the shark something should have taken him out.
Well, the only people that died were the marine life that lived there at their home.
No, there were two boys in a mini submarine.
No, but in this excursion.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
yes,
Humans
you're
come
right,
there, they just kill and slaughter everything around them, and then they go back on board and go, yeah, let's bomb the Van Allen's belts next.
Yeah.
All right, so they're back on the on the sub, and so they're all like. Now I was thinking that there'd be a nice, I don't know, a bit of a wrap up. No, that's right. The captain is trying to call the President of the United States. That's right.
The
So
Admiral, yes.
Yeah, they've made the connection, and he says, we've got the connection through. Sir.
Through to London. He's asking London to be put through to Washington.
Yes, and he's saying, can I talk to the President of the United States? And some, hello, this is Gary's fish shop. Yeah. You want fish? No, I want the President of the United States.
That's what I thought too. That's what I thought too. The one person that they actually called by tapping into the transatlantic phone line happened to know how to talk to Washington. Like, it was exactly the right person that they were, and informed them, of course, that we've lost all connection to
That's
New
right.
York,
So we can't get through.
to Washington.
There's a red phone that connects all the presidents of the world, right?
Yes.
And so if you tap the undersea cable, you look for the
Look
red
for the
cable.
red wire.
The little red that joins all of the red
Yes.
phones. Oh, yeah, that's how.
That's exactly what
That's
happened.
Exactly what happens. All right. Then everything goes dark.
Well, the Admiral announces to the crew that we can't talk to the President, so we're going ahead anyway.
Yeah. So he says,
go
I'm
ahead
going to
and-
have to make the decision.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Some of the crew instantly were not happy about that. So we were introduced to the notion that half the crew, or a large percentage of the crew down in their quarters, are pretty pissed. Because all they want to do, now that the world is ending,
Yes.
is go home to their families.
Yes.
Which is every soldier's right. When the
Apparently.
going gets tough,
Apparently
and
so.
things get dangerous, soldiers should go home to their loved ones.
We can just demand, I think the exact phrase later in the film is, we demand
Yeah.
that we go and do that.
Yeah, we find somebody else to do the dirty work, because we're soldiers and we need to be at home.
That's right.
Yes. And the shooting's getting a little bit heavy, and
We go home. now.
yes, we want to go home now. Thank you very much. It's been fun.
So yes, everything goes black,
Yes, everything goes black.
Yeah.
And
including sonar and radar.
that's right. The janitor is out. The janitor was pedaling, powering the sub.
The janitor that was peddling the generator
is out.
Yep.
And so they say, oh, well, we're going to have to stop and fiddle-faddle around for about 15 hours. And Admiral says, no, we'll have none of that. We're just going to motor on anyway.
We'll motor on and we'll look out the front window to see what
Yes, because we haven't got sonar, we haven't got radar, but we do have a window out the front.
Oh, what one? What a window.
Yes. Nice comfy chairs.
Yeah, they didn't assign anyone to stand at the window to look.
No.
Otherwise, they might have seen the mines coming towards
That's
them.
right. Because they instantly ran into a minefield.
Yes, they do.
Yes. One of those minefields that
Those
was just...
pesky minefields.
These mines every 5 meters,
There's hundreds of them.
right there in that one spot. It must have been underneath the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. That's probably what sunk all the boats.
It was a good suspenseful moment where the sub sort of
catches one.
All stop and it just catches one, and then as it's lurching forward, it's come up against the cable and the cable's sort of dragging it down towards the sub, and it just stops right there. So I thought that was a nice moment in the miniature work.
And they pull back and they're snagged.
Yeah, and it's caught in their bumper bar or something or other.
There's some kind of lighting bumper bar or something. It's
a light,
It was the headlights.
It's caught in the headlights.
Caught in the headlights.
Okay, so how are we going to solve this issue?
Someone's got to go out there.
Yes. Yep. And it's too deep now, so they can't send out divers.
So they're deep mines. They're very deep mines.
Yes. They're only for submarines.
So they're clearly just for submarines.
Yes.
And obviously, that's where submarines are.
Caught this submarine. So what is the alternative?
So they're going to have to ask for volunteers.
Which is usually the way on this sub.
Yes.
And sometimes civilians are fine to volunteer as well, that we found earlier. But yes, they asked for sub. We did earlier in the piece, early in the film, we got introduced to young Willie. Was it Willie or Tommy?
Whatever.
Timmy?
But he was
Timmy.
Yeah.
He was
Timmy,
he was the
Tommy,
admiral's son. You know, one of the admiral's friends' sons.
with a bright future.
With a bright future, and you immediately go, "You're going to cop it."
Yeah, you're gone. You are gone.
Dead.
And so obviously, they asked for volunteers, but the and the sort of chief or something,
the master gunner chief,
he volunteered and then pretty much guilted the guy next to him.
Come on, here's your chance.
You know.
Yes,
so and he was reluctant. Let's just say little Willie was not really keen to go. It was written all over him, but he went because he was quite the mini submariner.
Yes. So they go out in their mini sub with their little blaster torch on the front, and they burn through the cable.
They seemed to rush into it. I don't think
they did. They did take it rather quick.
They didn't sort of motor out and then stop and then hit the thing. They almost switched the little welding torch as they were still going.
Trying to do a drive-by.
Yeah, because if they hadn't held up for a bit, someone might have realised that there was another mine up there, and if we release this one, it's going to crash into that one. So let's cut that chain first. But they didn't, and as a result, hell broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to expedite and ran straight into another mine, and it was all over. It was quite the explosion in front of all watching in the observation.
It blows up, and then some water pours into the submarine. Whenever something goes wrong, water pours in.
But there's always a wheel.
Whenever
there's always a wheel that you can turn.
You just do that.
Yes.
I thought the implosions, the underwater implosions, were quite good in this. The little sub, and then later there's a bigger sub that implodes. I would have loved to have seen how they did that practically.
All right, so back on board. We're going to wrap up that little adventure. And something weird happens. No, something weird happens is that... Did we get attacked by another octopus? Or does that happen later?
It happens...
How many octopuses were
I
in
don't
this
know, I only
movie?
saw the film once.
There was a squid. A squid attacked the people, and an octopus attacked the sub. That was a large octopus at the end there when they zapped it.
That's right.
They gave it some.
They polarized the hull or something.
Yes,
using
the
their nuclear
anti-polarity of the hull.
But that was not long after the mine stuff. So in between the zapping of in between the mine field scenes and the octopus, a whole lot of conversations were going on in the ship in relation to the admiral.
Yeah,
and so people were turning on people.
Starts to turn into a bit of a whodunit.
Yeah,
because there was sabotage. The generator,
that's right.
bed on fire, or has that not happened yet?
No, that's about to happen.
Okay,
but there's another weird incident where there's a dead person in the mortuary.
That's right.
Yes, and they go in there and it's Johnny Roger who's dead, and there's a note in his hand, and his note was, "I sabotaged the generator, and it led to the death of the other people, so I decided to commit suicide."
Yeah.
Yes,
that's exactly what happened in the film.
And I wonder what his plan was.
There didn't appear to be any plan. There was a lot of interest about the note. It was almost like that whole thing was set up about trying to work out where the note that the Admiral found, because the Admiral found a note in his quarters that threatened his life.
That's right. There was another one, saying, "You lunatic, you're going to get You're going to get it.
Yeah. And then there was
And then there was this note, and they compared the two
did the
notes,
compare,
and they were
that's
trying
right.
to see if the same typewriter typed the notes.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it started to get a little bit weird, where you're trying to find the bad guy. And it appears that the bad guy has just done his bad stuff, and then he took himself out.
Yeah. And the note...
Or
that-
was he killed and then this
make
will
to look
make
like
it
he's-
look like you
yeah.
don't know?
But they never do the payoff.
No, they don't.
They never...
That's right.
Yeah.
What they needed to have in this movie is they needed to have a hand.
Yeah.
You know, they just needed to have a shot of a hand reaching into pulling cables apart. Or or a hand with a club whacking that guy
Or it
in the
would
back
even
of the
be
head
good
or
to just
something.
know. I mean, I know it's realistic that we don't know who's right or like who of the two scientists is doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But it would be good, I think, for storytelling thing and for me to engage with the story to know who's right. I mean, he is storming off on his own. No commands from the POTUS, or I'm going to do it myself.
Yep.
The whole world is after him, telling him no. Other scientists are saying, don't do it.
Yeah.
He goes, I'll do it anyway. And you think, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, could be.
He could be, but maybe he's not because he's got the good guys on his side and he makes good arguments.
Yep.
So you're confused.
And they were also setting him up to be the bad guy because the captain kept, rubbing his chin because it's like, the Admiral keeps not saving people or almost drowning the cops.
Yeah.
And we're starting to build a
Bit of a
case that
madman.
he's a bit of a crazy person.
Yeah.
And the psychiatrist does the same.
She's lumping on more doubt
Yes.
on that as well. I agree with Tom. As you go through this film, all of these instances happen, but you could quite easily resolve the end of the film with every one of those instances being attributed to a different human.
That's what I think.
You could quite all of those things could have been done by a different person.
That's
And
what my
and you
takeaway-
have no
You wouldn't
idea
know.
which one.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway from the film, is that they were all independently done,
Yeah.
3
And they
sabotage
didn't play
attempts.
that. Like you could have, if that was the case, you could have played that up. Like you could have played the fact that
You got to make it.
there's multiple conspirators.
Yeah, you got to make it obvious, or even simpler, just have one freaking conspirator.
Yeah.
Hey,
All
now,
right.
now you just sounded like Sparks, who we didn't mention in the film just yet.
That's right.
The radio
The
operator.
radio
The guy who will yell, goes the radio. Sure, we'll do that, Cap.
I've been listening to Static for 24 hours. It's really doing my head in.
Calling
My
New
brain
York.
is hurts.
New York.
Brain hurts.
All right, so cough, cough.
Yep.
The ship's on fire.
Well, the doctor's on fire. The admiral's on fire.
The Admiral's on fire. He's sleeping in his bed.
And my first thought was he's fallen asleep with a cigar.
Yeah.
Sure enough, someone tried to put it on the cigar.
Yeah, blame it on the cigar.
So they put the fire out and realised that it is the admiral is convinced that it's an attempt on his life.
Because he ran out of cigars.
Yeah,
That's right.
He didn't have any.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's got to go down now and get some more.
The
Yes.
captain is just adding it to the building pile of evidence that the admiral is losing it, that he's a madman and he's lost, and he's aided by the psychiatrist who is telling
Who
him.
is whispering in his ear.
It's copybook. It's copybook. That's exactly what you'd expect him to say.
Yes, he's delusional, paranoid, nut job. But we never get any payoff.
No.
Where did it go? Who did? Why did?
Yeah.
Didn't tell us.
Maybe it was the doctor the whole time. The
psychiatrist. Yeah.
because the dead guy was in her doctor's office, right? The medical office. Later on, she's the one that goes into the nuclear room and
Shuts that
tries
down.
to sabotage. So there's at least two things that she's tied directly to, even though we only have evidence of the latter. I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, then another throwaway bit of nonsense. Just after they put all the fire out, Commodore Lucius, excuse me, points up to the ventilator and says, "Gas."
Remember the guy.
Yes.
But they never paid that off. Was that just smoke or?
There's so many
Gas?
things happening.
They didn't
I'm just
explain where it
perpetually
came from.
3.5 hours of watching the film. I'm just confused the entire time through.
I know why they did it, because they needed to surface.
They needed to get the people out of the ship.
So that they could see the other ship.
Yes.
And did you notice the other ship where they sent some boys over on a boat, really small boat.
Yeah.
They sent some boys over to check out the ship, and when they landed on the ship, they found that everybody was dead.
Yes.
In the 13
It's a
seconds.
ghost ship.
In the 13 seconds it took to search this massive ship.
Yes.
The whole time, someone's blowing the foghorn on the ship.
Yes, I heard that too.
Just another octopus.
And the guy goes, "No, everybody's dead. Let's go." And then what happens? What happens
Some
at that
guy,
point?
save me, murder.
They all go back. They go back and tell the rest of the crew that are now standing on top of the floating submarine, waiting for the gas to be cleared out. And they have a discussion about this. Is when the
soldiers
mutineers slash I've got a headache, I want to go home, boys. Demand to be taken home, and the admiral takes upon himself to cut them some slack with the mutiny side of things, and says, "Well, there's a good ship over there, you can take that." Despite the fact that ship's full of dead people.
Yes,
right. They're sailors as well. What chance? Like, why do you? Not one of them's thought. Well, why do we want to go over to the death ship? Right.
I was thinking that as well. What do you gain by going over to the death ship?
That's your choice. That's the only ship.
Imagine you stay on the sub, and let's imagine that the nuke doesn't do anything, and everybody dies. It doesn't matter where you are; you're all going to die. Yeah. Or let's imagine that the nuke does save the day.
Yep.
I mean, then you're stuck on a death ship.
Yeah. But you brought up that point, Dan. What if the admiral is wrong, right? And so the Van Allen belt really fizzles out on the 30th. Yes. Well, if he goes on the 29th and fires, I mean, what would have been the...
But let's imagine the admiral fires it up and the bad thing happens and it nukes the Earth. It bounces off the Van Allen belt and comes back and hits the Earth. One more nuke? It makes it worse. That was Zhukov's argument that you're going to make it worse, buddy. Yeah. Right. Let's imagine now that you've transferred to the Ghost ship, and it makes it worse. Yeah. Well, that doesn't help.
Exactly.
So you might as well stay in your nice quarters.
Now,
all of this in a stinky Ghost ship.
All of this discussion is only because the guys that went over and checked the death ship came back with a newspaper. And on the front page of the newspaper, because apparently the rest of the world is still making news, still selling newspapers, it said that all of the world's navies are hunting the Sea View to stop and with orders to kill, shoot to kill the admiral and the Sea View.
And yet the admiral goes, we're continuing. Yeah, couldn't reach the president. I'm in charge.
That's right. That's right. So you would think that the president was one of those people that ordered all those things.
Yes, you could probably put two and two together there and think.
It doesn't alleviate the confusion. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
All right. So the guys who want to go home and don't want to play in the army anymore, they get on the ship. Then the other get it, and then they're back under the water.
The admiral's theory is we're better to have a skeleton crew that want to be here than a pack of idiots that don't.
Now, there's another thing that they say, all right, we're 49 minutes out from the launch thingo and we're almost ready to launch. And then an interesting little story beat happens where Admiral Horatio Nelson goes down into the medical thingy and he's puttering around talking to people, and he comes across Richie Valens, who's in there like, I've got a headache.
In a dressing gown in the sick bay.
Yes. And so what does he say and do to the...
Well, he finds him in his dressing gown and says, "What's wrong with you?" And he says, "I've got a headache." And so the doctor said I should stay here. He said, "You look fine to me. Get back on duty.
You pipsqueak."
Yeah, you pipsqueak. And he gives the admiral a bit of lip, and so the admiral bitch slaps him.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then leaves.
Yeah. Calls him a pipsqueak. Bitch slaps him and leaves.
And the captain walked in just at that moment and was able to witness the admiral bitch slapping the crewman, one of his crewmen, and that was it.
Yep.
That was it. That's the final straw.
Yep.
He's decided, because he's recently, in a previous scene, been looking through the regulations that a submarine captain should probably be aware of anyway, but he wanted to check to know what the procedure was to relieve an admiral of duty if he was incompetent.
That's right. He did a search for pipsqueak and bitch slap. He's like, it is against the rules. That's what I thought. I want to do a quick history note that this is a story beat from a real history.
Oh, really?
General Patton in the Second World War did exactly that.
Oh, really?
Yes. So he's a big, he's the guy with the two guns. He's walking around and and then he went into some sort of...
Mud and Guts.
Yeah, Blood and Guts Patton. And he went into some camp full of poor bastards who were, half of them fucked in the head, 1,000-yard stare, where they're just shell-shocked. And he's like, "You, pussy!" slapped him and got into a shitload of trouble in the news and stuff for being a jerk. All right, so, okay, so what happens next?
Well, he arrests him, doesn't he?
Well,
Well, the captain goes into
confirms with the doctor.
yeah, and then
Because I think he knows that he can do it on the say so of a medical person. And I think that's the same on like Star Trek and whatever. I think that's standard
be
sort of
unfit
military.
for duty.
Unfit for duty normally has to be declared by a doctor as well. Like there has to be some kind of medical declaration as well.
And then that whole thing where the captain goes in to arrest the admiral, which I thought was a bit weird because he's like, Captain, I'm Regulation 4 of page 12. And the admiral's like, oh, I know, Regulation 4 of page 12, the Pipsqueak article. Yes, sure, I certainly am. You have to arrest me, of course. Yes, I understand. Well, bugger that. That's a jolly... What a pain in the ass. Oh, well, yes, I'll go down to the brig, shall I? Yeah, okay, cool.
But then halfway there, he goes, well, let's do this other thing. Because something get interrupted, and the whole arrest is no longer valid.
Halfway through the arrest, they get interrupted because another submarine attacks them and shoots a torpedo at them.
That's right.
And he says, oh, well, in that case, I'm back in command.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like they totally missed out on an opportunity to build up some tension.
Yeah.
You'll have the guy, the captain, rummaging through the article, looking for Article 7. Yeah. And then you can cut to the UN submarine, which is dark and spooky. Yeah. And then you can have him marching down the corridor, march. And then you cut to the other submarine, and it's getting closer, and they're looking through the and they're setting up the new... But they didn't. It's just like, oh, somebody's...
The only thing I can say to that, Dan, is we got a lot better at making movies since then. we would...
After a bit of practice.
There was... Because I believe... I think I agree with you. Like, and there was not the first part of this film that missed an opportunity to build some suspense.
Yeah.
Just sort of rolled. They just rolled from one room to the next room to the next thing to the next room.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of that timely pause to build suspense.
All right, so the UN submarine turns up and it's launching torpedoes at them.
Torpedoes, yep. And what was the theory? How are they going to outwit the submarine?
Well, they're going to outwit the submarine by going down to their deeper crush depth.
Deep.
That's
run deep.
Run deep. Run
silent.
Silent. Yes.
Into the Marianas Trench.
Yes. Just
no doubt.
To be,
it's the deepest.
No submarine can... No submarine of that size, certainly.
No.
There's tiny ones that have been there. James Cameron himself.
Yes.
He's been quite deep in the Marianas.
Has been to the bottom of the ocean.
But not a submarine that size. Certainly not with eight. Was it 8 windows?
In the front.
8 bay windows, isn't it? Or 4, something. 2-story. Yeah. Great. Yes.
But that's how they outran the...
But they had some argument that they couldn't send torpedoes back because of rules of regulation. They didn't want to blow up the UN or something or other for some reason.
Was there...
I've forgotten. It was Article 12 of the...
That's right. I remember a line. I can't fire on them.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go down and then the other thing gets crushed and we never even see the people in there. It's just
we don't know whether there's any humans in that.
Yeah,
we missed an opportunity to have some cantankerous old sailor.
Yeah.
Some submariner.
A Russian.
Yeah, maybe a Russian or something.
We will get him. Everybody drink vodka. Let's go.
Launch torpedoes 2 and 4.
Launch all the torpedoes and the ones at the back.
I will chase him. I will break him. It's too deep, Captain.
Anyway, and then after the submarine blows up, they immediately get attacked by an octopus.
Yes.
Because when the going gets tough, then octopus come out and want to mish along. They don't hide. They come out to party.
Yep.
I even wrote down the line from Admiral Nelson the second the octopus attacks, and he actually says, "What the?" That's what he said. He said, "What the?"
So they zap him with some...
It's actually like they kind of like run into an octopus. It's like, it's just like this octopus here and they're just like... just sort of squish into this octopus. Yeah. Gigantic octopus.
And the nuclear... as some of the Americans would call... they use the nuclear zap... charge mechanism from the nuclear engines to charge the hull to get rid of the octopus, which worked. Pretty quickly. We just zapped it and that didn't work, so we zapped it again, and that didn't work, so we zapped it again.
And it worked.
Third time worked.
Yeah. So it was like
4 minutes later,
yeah,
octopus gone.
yeah. Run into octopus, charge octopus, octopus falls off. Okay, let's keep going, everybody.
Let's keep it going.
Back to your quarters. Just another octopus. Nothing to see here.
So they're minutes now away, aren't they? We're sort of
We're down to like
49 minutes, or
sort of
something.
7 minutes or something.
Yeah,
No, we're down
yeah.
to 7 minutes or
Yeah.
something.
Well,
like that.
it was about 49 out when the psychiatrist, Dr. Chick, decided to go into the engine room and.
Well,
Have we
it's
done
now
that?
it's now
No,
her
that's
her,
now-
her time. So yes, she goes down to the reactor.
Shuts it down.
She goes into the reactor.
What does she do?
She actually does nothing.
Well, she gives herself a lethal dose of radiation,
Yeah, she does that,
and,
and it has no effect on anything.
yeah, and she manages to get past the special ground sensor
Yeah,
alarm.
that they specifically showed us before. They go beep 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 beep.
Well,
beep.
you could step over that.
It's for that exact. That's exactly why they put it in there.
Yeah.
One step, one big step just over it will do. It's just a doormat.
And it's like a big silver pad that's quite literally says, if you step on this, it's a big loud alarm. So we're just going to go around it.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't know. Did she bring it down? Did she bring the?
She went in there and she pulled out some wires or something or other that had absolutely no effect on the plot, the story, the characters, or anything.
Yeah, I think it just sent an alarm off or something because the captain did have to go down there for some
To
reason
check it out.
and found her.
Found her with a red tag.
Wandering one. Oh, he found they met on the bridge
On
over
the bridge.
the shark,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
And her tag was red.
and then there
And-
was some kind of rocking motion that went on, and she fell in the shark tank.
And got eaten by a shark.
And that was that. Which we didn't see.
No, we didn't.
She
see.
just
We
falls
we
in
saw a
and
lot
we
of
just-
splashing and some bubbles.
Not even that. Oh, did we?
There were bubbles. We saw the bubbles from the
Oh,
like
so,
the,
yeah,
I saw
the
her fall
camera was
in
right
and
on
then
the
she didn't
surface,
come
so
out
we just
again.
saw a
No,
lot
there was a
of
scream
bubbling.
and there was a few bubbles.
And I thought the poor shark is now radiated.
Yeah.
Well, the poor shark lives next to a radioactive.
Yeah, but the door closed.
Well, what do you think they do with the radioactive water
Yeah.
that comes out of that
That's where
thing?
the shark. It's a nuclear shark, radioactive shark.
Cooling tank. And it just seemed to me like he's going to lose the arm. Like the captain
Yeah.
passed out on the.
And
on
then
the-
let his arm fall in the shark tank.
and his arm was deliberately dangling in the shark tank.
But the shark is full.
I have a
It
theory,
was pretty full.
and the shark only likes radioactive food.
Yeah.
Shark. We already said that half an hour ago.
it's a-
The sharks only eat the bad guys.
It's a solid theory.
Yeah. So, all right. So she's dead. She was one saboteur. Was she the whole saboteur? Nobody knows.
nobody
anymore.
knows.
We don't
Because
know.
we've still got spare saboteurs left on the ship.
Absolutely. Because
So-
it's now mere minutes away from when the 7 minutes away, the missile must be launched.
Right. And Alvarez.
Decides to hold up the pineapple.
That's right.
But for
Grenade.
different
He's got a
reasons.
pineapple.
All these
The half
saboteurs have
pineapple grenade.
different reasons. I mean, he's a religious zealot.
Yes.
She wants, I don't know what she wants. The soldiers, they just want to go home because it's starting to get dangerous.
Yeah.
So they're all sabotaging for
Yeah.
their own agenda.
Yeah.
So he says, don't launch the missiles or I'll blow up this bomb.
Yeah.
And
then
we're just going to sit here
we're
for
just gonna
7
sit
minutes
and wait.
until you miss the deadline.
Because God wills it.
Yes. Now,
They have a bit of a philosophical argument. The Admiral says, well, if God gave us the power to do something about it, doesn't he want us
Yes, that's
to
right.
do something about it?
If God didn't want us to do something about us, why did he give us the power of choice or
Yes.
something?
Yeah.
I thought a better argument was, how do you know all this fire's friggin' God? How do you know it's not Satan?
Yes,
And
exactly.
we're the messengers of God with this nuclear missile
have
to
to
fix the fucking problem.
Defeat the fire. And so the captain comes to
Yeah.
and sees this drama taking place on the monitor. Was it on the monitor? Did he see it on the monitor? I think he does.
Yes, he might have seen it. I don't know.
Or he gets informed. He gets informed that Alvarez has taken the crew, blah, blah, blah. So he comes up with a plan. What's the plan?
I think we need to go through his mindset here of exactly how he comes to organise the plan. I'll tell you what the plan is. He's going to swim outside and strap a thing on the missile that makes the thing work, and the thing does it, and it's all
That's
good.
right.
Because
it's
they-
a wind-up detonator
At the
thing.
start, when they did all the exposition, when they showed, here's our little mini sub that we'll use later, here's a door that we can exit later, here are little pineapples that will definitely get used.
That's right.
Later on.
Here are little yellow ring things that can fix stuff.
Yeah, with the windy thing.
It's a round disc, and
When
we
the
use it
nuclear
to
bomb
fix shit.
won't fire or launch or detonate. This is a manual detonation
Remote
flat
launching.
pizza box.
at the start of the film, you could put it all on your list, and then while you watch the film, you can sort of shark. Yep, put the shark on the list. Shark will eat somebody. Yep, done. Tick it off.
The only thing they didn't use was the dog.
That's right.
It's a deleted
You're
scene.
right.
Yes.
I got a feeling the dog got left in New York and no one mentioned it.
Would have been cool if they had to jam the dog in the missile.
To hold the door open.
Here, dog, hold the door open. Fluffy,
We'll never forget you, Bingo.
you're in space now. Okay, so he goes and straps the thing on a thing, and the missile launches, and it blows up the thing, and everything's good, and we're all done.
And quite literally, done.
Yeah.
Like there were hugs and cheers,
Hugs and cheers.
and the sky was still on fire. The off-sider scientist guy was very keen to hug the admiral, and like there was no sign that it had worked, but they were just so convinced because it felt like the director or the producer just decided, no, we're out of here. Like we literally have 5 seconds. We've got to finish the film now.
It's bloody 4.5 hours. We got to finish this bloody thing.
People need to go to the toilet. Let's just cut it. Let them out of the theater.
Someone
There'll
behind
be
the
a
camera
riot.
going, yeah. No, yeah. Okay, go.
Put the dog. We wanted to put the dog. No,
Cut the
no
dog.
time.
Free the dog.
So they saved the day, saved the planet. Or at least that's what we're led to
Surely
believe.
there's this blue sky at the very end.
No.
We can see. I've got the shot of the
They
last.
missed the opportunity. It was blue, but it was night.
Well,
It wasn't even a day blue sky.
It wasn't on fire.
I think the larger point is that if there was a blue screen, a blue sky, they showed it for about 7 milliseconds and
was
then
very-
rolled the credits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so like so many of these movies. It's like, well, that's the bad guy dead, and movie finishes now. I mean, surely you would have the scene of him going back to the UN, kneeing Zukov in the balls, and a ticker tape
Nearly
parade,
killed us all. Yes, yeah.
or something or other to give us a bit of a payoff at the end.
And so many of these films that we've looked at from that period do exactly the same thing, where there's an ending but no conclusion.
That's right, ending no conclusion.
And it's exactly the same thing here. We don't know whether is everyone dead. Has war broken out across the planet because everyone thought they were going to die? What happened to the guys on the ship?
Yeah.
The other ship? What happened to the dog? We don't see any resolution at all. What happened to the bad guy?
Well, we still.
Is he the bad guy?
We didn't even know what happened to the bad guy because we still at least had one bad guy confirmed left alive on the ship.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's it.
What was the soldiers drinking? They were in their little room, and then they all got told that the world is going down the drain.
Saw that. I saw
And so he
the
opens
chief.
the thing.
He grabs it, drinks it, and then
And
some
looks
other
like-
guy takes it off him and puts it back in and looks at him as if to say,
Metal glass of metal shavings. It
Yeah.
looks like some dark brew thing.
"Yeah." That
Yeah, I
maybe-
didn't know what that was.
Maybe it was the crew.
It did not look like a bottle of
It
spirits.
looked like medicine or something or other.
Getting in a bit of home brew on the nuclear submarine.
Nuclear.
They called the submarine on the news the Nelson's Folly.
Ah, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
You know what the Nelson's Folly is?
Something rings a bell about it.
It is also a drink. It's a seaman's term for rum.
Is it really?
It's rum. Rum is Nelson's Folly. And I thought, why is that rum? Because Nelson, when he died at the Battle of Trafalgar and he had to get taken home and they wanted to not have him rot on board of the ship, they pickled him.
In rum.
No, in brandy. So I looked that up. I thought, maybe that's why it's Nelson's Folly, because that's why they called it rum. But he was pickled in brandy, so it's
Did he
not the
break
same
his
thing.
back? Was that what happened to
No,
him?
he was shot by a...
A sniper.
sniper.
He was always on board there with his big hat and clearly
His big captain hat.
recognizable as the admiral, as an important person.
Yeah.
So he shot him.
Budget 1.5 million estimated.
And made 7?
Is that in today money?
Probably not.
So you could probably increase that by quite a bit for today money.
Yeah, I can give you that. It grossed 7 million. Yeah,
Yeah.
1961,
So,
7 million.
that's
2.3 million rentals.
That's what, 3 times?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I think it was very successful.
Yeah, it was.
in the day.
Hence a spin-off TV series.
Walter is it Walter Pigeon?
Yes.
He's been in some big films of the day.
What was he also in? What
Well, he
else
was
he in?
Mobius from Forbidden Planet.
Oh yeah, of course he was. There you go.
He was the same guy.
Yeah,
The only
he's the
difference
same
is
guy.
they rolled in some military shit into this guy, but he was the genius.
Yeah, he was the scientist. When
And
was
only
was
he-
Forbidden Planet before this?
I got a feeling
Oh,
it
no,
might have
confused
been.
us.
Can we find?
We should know this.
No, we can.
Because I don't know, people would have known him then, perhaps.
Wasn't
as,
Forbidden Planet 1964? Was after? I would say it's after.
Oh, it might have been after. Yeah,
Forbidden Planet 56.
56.
56.
So it was before.
Yep.
So
Oh, it was
I don't know.
before.
He might have been typecast as the scientist type, so
That's-
people would
that's
have
him
already
there as a
known.
younger
Yeah.
lad,
Yeah.
or young. Well, a not 70-year-old guy, because
Yes.
in both these films he was pretty much 65, 70.
So that's what I thought was a bit odd, because he's the hero and he's sort of the crotchety old sort of past it guy. And if you're trying to get, I don't know, young people interested in the thing, you know, you need to have the boy wonder, not the aged grandparent hero.
Yeah.
You know,
There was some bizarre decisions in the whole thing. Our producer Irwin Allen.
Producer, director, and writer, isn't he?
Yeah,
That's his baby.
absolutely. He did Lost in Space.
yeah.
He directed one episode of Lost in Space, but he produced 87 of them, something like that. 84 episodes of Lost in Space. He did the series of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and then, if you can cast your mind back to a TV series called The Time Tunnel. Remember the two guys that would go down that spinning
Yeah.
time thing, and they kept getting, there was a control room, but these guys were just jumping from time to time. What they weren't doing is coming back to the control room. So it was, I guess it was like an old school Quantum Leap, and there were two guys. Yeah,
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I remember the swirly time tunnel
and
thing.
they would
Yeah,
turn
that was
up
classic image.
in medieval time, and then they'd be in Russia, and there'd be always some famous thing going on there that they had an opportunity to change the history, and they never seemed to change anything. But yeah, so he's contributed quite a bit. Towering Inferno was the big one for me, and the Poseidon Adventure, which was this part 2 of the Poseidon. What was the first one? Poseidon. You know, where the ship rolls over.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Isn't that the Poseidon Adventure?
I got a feeling the Poseidon Adventure was part 2, where they go back and find the ship is upside. Well, a group of passengers struggle to survive and escape when their ocean liner completely capsizes. Okay,
Yeah.
So he produced the Poseidon Adventure, and then there was another Poseidon movie at some point, Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
Right. It's where the ship rights itself again.
No, there's an international. When you come across something in international waters, you own it.
Okay.
Like it's called. It's not Flotsam and Jetsam.
Called
it's salvage.
Finders Keepers.
It is. It's quite literally finders keepers, and the reason for it is you got to get the shit out of the ocean that's going to cause other stuff to sink.
Okay.
So you give it to whoever finds it.
Right. Okay.
Right.
That sounds logical.
As long as it's in international waters. So if it's I forget the official term of it. So that's what the story of that Poseidon Adventure was. The Beyond Poseidon. It starred Michael Caine.
Oh, right.
And
cool.
they knew that ship was full of gold. So they went, found it, cut a hole in it, and went inside it to get the gold, and then adventure ensues. But the big one for me was Towering Inferno, because that's a classic. Towering Inferno starred Steve McQueen and this guy. Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, and their egos were so huge that their words were measured in the script and could not be uneven.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the size of their credits on the posters, everything.
But who goes first?
Well, who does go first? I don't know. And this went throughout the whole film. I remember it's really famous that the Paul Newman and Steve McQueen thing was going on in that film. So I was quite shocked to find that the guy from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was the producer of those two films.
All right, so what are we giving this movie?
Out of our rating system of rent rent, buy, burn.
It's got to start with B. It's got to be bludge, buy, burn.
I like borrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Borrow, buy, burn. I'm going to say...
What's the difference between bludge and borrow?
They're almost the same. Borrow, you're giving it back. Bludge is you're just going to take it.
Oh, I thought you meant bludgeon.
Well, there's...
bludgeon as well.
You can have it in any
But
context.
then there's
Oh, yeah. So I like bludge then. We'll keep it bludge, buy, burn, and I would not buy it, and I would not burn it. So
Yeah.
I would bludge it.
Yeah, bludge it too. If those are the options, I'd bludge it.
Yeah, I think it's terribly mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything's in context as well. You can't forget about all the other films. And when you compare this to all of the other films, it's closer to the top than it is the bottom.
They've got on
It was
IMDb.
boring.
Yeah.
It was 4.5 hours of boredom.
That's why I said terribly mediocre.
And nothing underwater should ever be boring.
No, there's I enjoyed the people with the tanks on their back. Some had one tank, some had two. They had colourful suits. But
I liked all the bits, but not the whole. That's the sort of thing that I had.
There's a sawfish. Oh, shit's dead. Ah, there's a giant octopus. Oh, shit, it's killed.
Yeah, so... the story kind of, was a bit wonky, but I don't know, I like the models, and I like the sort of basic premise, and I like the guy come up, on top of the ocean, and suddenly the world's changed.
Watching this film made me want to see a different underwater film.
Yeah.
I saw this and said, gosh, I really have to watch 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea again.
Yeah.
I want to see one of those other films.
Even Hunt for Red October. Like, that's what I mean. Like, if you're in a nuclear-powered tube underwater, in an environment that is so hostile to humans, right? We just do not belong under. Everything wants to kill you. There's no air. There's nothing. Like, so everything, you're on a knife's edge any moment that you're underwater. And there was not enough tension for an underwater end-of-the-world movie.
I was watching another movie, which wasn't a sci-fi. It was like a war drama, but it was about a destroyer captain, and I can't remember what it's going to be called. A destroyer captain and a U-boat captain. And the pair of them fighting each other, but they never see each other, and neither of them's the bad guy. They're both the hero, and they're both cunning, and they're both intelligent, and they both beat each other, and then they both lose to each other, and I won't spoil the end of it. Anyway, yes. So this one, for me, it says here 6.1 on IMDb. Yeah, it's sort of average, well constructed, competently done. But successful at the time. Either that was a slow year for movies, or other people, just I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty. Like 61.
They had lots of stuff going on. They had sort of lots of colour going on. The submarine was blue, outside was red. They got that. Like I said, they had lots of really good bits. The octopuses looked good.
I think the plot is what let it down. The script let it down. They were too busy worrying about Frankie Avalon and and I Dream of Jeannie dancing in the bloody kitchen and stuff. Give us some dialogue, give us some meaning, and explain some shit,
and have some bad guys so that we can go, boo, he's the bad guy. I hate that guy
because he wasn't in the end, right? He saved the planet.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
So,
all right.
Let me tell you the German title.
Yes, please. Yes.
Do you want to have a go at guessing what would be the most awkward?
I wouldn't have a clue, but I would love to know the German word for voyage. What's German for Voyage of the Geek?
Well, judging by the German title, I couldn't tell you what the German version of Voyage is. Voyage was maybe Reise.
Yeah.
Maybe Reise what's? Oh, good Lord, Geek is a word you can't.
Journey.
You got me on the spot there. As if I could speak German. I have a hard time enough translating titles for you. Reise no. So this one is Unternehmen Feuergürtel, which is...
When does it not sound better? It always sounds better in German, doesn't it?
Which translates as Operation Firebelt.
I love the way that...
All right, that's ridiculous.
The Germans...
But they're always like that.
It's like the Germans have got a word for everything. The Germans have got a word for when you tie a bow backwards on a puppy after it's been washed. Like, there's a word for that.
And they're long words too. They've got like 16 syllables.
Oh, I like
when
that.
we see the fire, it's around the earth like a belt.
Van Allen's belt.
Van Allen belt.
Mm.
So, but
a fire belt.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. You would never conclude that this is a submarine movie with that title.
Alvarez was talking about finding love at the bottom of the ocean, which had nothing to do with the
Avalon, yes.
Avalon, whatever his name was.
Alvarez probably as well. He was
We
religious.
we should have gone
Found love
out
everywhere.
tonight with Frankie's song, shouldn't we?
At the bottom of the sea.
It'd be almost an achievement to have YouTube flag us for Frankie Avalon's Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. All right, gentlemen,
All
thanks
right.
for joining us once again. And until next time, it's bye for me.
Bye for me.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What is your purpose here? How many of you